Denny Hamlin called his own car illegal, out loud, on camera, and then won the race anyway. That one moment cracked something open in the NASCAR garage that hasn't closed since. Because when the most controversial owner-driver in the sport jokes about cheating, and his car keeps passing inspection, rivals stop laughing. They start talking, and what they're saying behind closed doors is a lot angrier than anything you've heard publicly yet. Here's what you need to know going in. Toyota has won 13 of 16 Cup races in 2026. Hamlin has 3 of those wins, each one bigger than the last. Every inspection clean, every protest dismissed. And every time someone raises a flag, the story somehow gets worse, not better. Personally, I think where there's this much smoke, NASCAR owes the entire field a real answer, not just a past inspection sheet. Do you agree? Or is this just a witch hunt? Drop your take in the comments. What nobody's talking about yet is the history sitting behind all of this. And once you see it, everything the garage is feeling right now makes complete sense. Hamlin didn't walk into 2026 with a clean reputation. He walked in with a file, a real one. Every person in that paddock knows what's inside it because some of it is already public record, and what isn't public has been whispered loud enough that nobody in the garage missed it. What's in that file isn't one mistake, it's a pattern. Official actions. Penalties. Teardowns ordered by NASCAR on his operation at Joe Gibbs Racing that technically closed on paper, but never closed in anyone's memory. The kind of history that means when something looks off, nobody waits for an explanation. Nobody gives the benefit of the doubt. The garage skips straight to the conclusion, and right now that conclusion is making a lot of people very uncomfortable, because Toyota's 2026 dominance isn't just impressive. It's the kind of dominance that stops conversations mid-sentence in the garage. 13 Cup races run, 13 chances for Chevrolet or Ford to break through. The math keeps returning the same result. Hamlin specifically, 3 straight wins, each by margins that make drivers who belong at the front look like they're racing a completely different car. And every single time NASCAR runs that car through inspection, it comes back spotless. That last detail is the one that's eating rivals alive. A dirty inspection means a process exists. Penalty, resolution, everyone moves forward. But a car that keeps winning by unexplainable margins and keeps passing every check gives the field nothing to point to officially. Just a suspicion that grows heavier every single Sunday with no release valve anywhere. Crew chiefs are comparing data quietly. Engineers are running numbers they aren't sharing openly. Drivers are having conversations in private that careful PR management is keeping away from cameras. For now. The tension in that garage was already past the boiling point before Michigan. What Hamlin did in Victory Lane didn't just add fuel. It handed his critics the exact weapon they'd been waiting to find. Standing there knowing the paddock's temperature, knowing his own history, and exactly how rivals read it, Hamlin grabs the microphone and delivers the line that would follow him for the rest of this season. Tells the crowd it's easy to win when your car is as illegal and cheated up as his. Obvious joke. Hamlin would say that himself. Except jokes only land as jokes when the person telling them has no baggage. When the history exists, when the margins are already unexplainable, when the garage is already privately furious, that same joke lands as something completely different. Not as proof, not as confession, but as confirmation of a story the field was already telling itself. And that's often more damaging than proof ever could be. Kyle Larson heard it. William Byron heard it. Every crew chief who'd already been quietly pushing for deeper inspections heard it. Tyler Reddick, watching a points lead that felt comfortable shrinking toward territory that no longer feels safe, heard it. NASCAR cleared the car anyway. Full inspection, clean result, official position, nothing to see here, which left an entire field of competitors with no formal outlet, no official accusation they could make, and no answer that satisfied anyone, just a fire that kept growing with no place to direct it. That should have been where this story stalled. Instead, something hit the internet that turned a garage rumor into a full explosion, and the source of it is the part that changes everything. Rumors move fast inside NASCAR, but what emerged after Hamlin's Dover All-Star win didn't move. It detonated. Across NASCAR social media within hours, a post spread with the kind of specific detail that makes people stop scrolling. The claim wasn't vague. It named a specific person. It described specific evidence, and the person it named wasn't a rival from another team. It was Chase Briscoe, Hamlin's own teammate at Joe Gibbs Racing. The Post claimed Briscoe had taken video evidence to NASCAR officials. Not a complaint, not a protest. Video footage allegedly showing a device on Hamlin's car that had no business being there. Sit with what that does to a fan base already carrying everything from the sections above. Briscoe shares Hamlin's garage, shares his data, has access to information no rival team could ever get close to. If the claim was true, this wasn't an outside accusation. It was the most inside job possible, a teammate with direct evidence going directly to officials. And given the 23XI Racing antitrust battle, Hamlin's co-owned team spending 14 months in a legal war against NASCAR itself before settling in December 2025, fans already primed to believe the sport had complicated feelings about Hamlin read that post and felt it click into place. The post spread because it fit the narrative perfectly. It was also completely fabricated. Within hours, the story collapsed. The specific details that made it feel credible were the same details that fell apart under any real scrutiny. No filing existed, no official complaint. NASCAR confirmed no formal investigation was open. Briscoe himself had said nothing to anyone. The hoax died fast. But what it left behind in the garage, that didn't die. That's where the real story begins. Because here is what that fake post actually accomplished, regardless of being fiction. It forced every driver, every crew chief, and every team principal in the paddock to publicly or privately take a position on something they'd been carefully avoiding. The fake leak made the real tension undeniable. You couldn't pretend the garage was fine after that post spread to hundreds of thousands of fans. The conversation was now public in a way no inspection result or victory lane joke had managed to make it. Hamlin responded, not carefully, not through a PR team. He got on social media and mocked the entire situation with the kind of unbothered energy that either means total innocence or total confidence in what inspections will and won't find. Depending on where you stand, that response either settled the question or deepened it. Rival teams watched that response and split immediately. Some read a man with nothing to hide. Others read a man who knows exactly how the system works and exactly how much room exists inside it. Both readings are alive in the same garage right now, sitting next to each other at the same drivers' meetings, shaking hands on pit road before green flags, and simmering underneath every single on-track battle for position. The split in that garage is wider than it's been in years. Here's exactly who said what, and why the drivers who haven't spoken yet are the ones you actually need to worry about. Briscoe shut the rumor down publicly and hard, posted that AI-generated content targeting real people in the sport was completely out of control. Clear, direct, no ambiguity. He wanted no part of that story and made sure everyone knew it immediately. That should have cooled things down. It didn't. Because Briscoe killing the specific claim didn't kill the underlying question the claim was built on. Drivers who'd been sitting on genuine frustration for weeks suddenly had a moment where everything they'd been feeling privately was visible publicly. The fake post cracked the surface open. And what came through that crack wasn't manufactured outrage. It was real competitive anger that had been building since the first race of the season. Multiple drivers inside the top 10 of the standings have had direct conversations with their crew chiefs about the JGR operation specifically. Not for the record, not with cameras anywhere nearby. The language used in those conversations, according to people close to those teams, goes well beyond frustration about losing races. This is anger about potentially losing a championship to something that doesn't have a clean explanation. Those are two completely different categories of anger. Losing a race hurts. Losing a title to something that passed inspection but still felt wrong, that follows a driver for the rest of their career. That's the kind of thing that gets brought up in retirement interviews 20 years later. One driver, speaking without attribution because the political situation inside the garage makes going on record genuinely risky right now, described the mood as the worst internal tension he'd felt since the early days of the next generation car, when teams were still figuring out what the rules actually permitted. Another described the inspection process itself as the real problem, not whether Hamlin specifically is cheating, but whether the current inspection framework is even capable of catching what people suspect might be there. That second point is the one NASCAR does not want becoming the dominant conversation publicly, because if the field loses faith in the inspection process itself, not in one team, but in the process, that's a legitimacy crisis that extends far beyond Denny Hamlin and one controversial victory lane quote. Tyler Reddick hasn't said Hamlin is cheating, hasn't implied it publicly, but the 51-point gap that once looked manageable is now the number his entire championship calculation runs through. And every race that gap doesn't close is another week where the question hangs over the points table without an answer. The drivers who are genuinely erupting aren't doing it on camera. Not yet. The ones making noise publicly are either defending themselves like Briscoe or deflecting like Hamlin. The real eruption, the one with names and direct accusations and consequences, is being held just below the surface by people who understand that going public too early, without harder evidence than a dominant season and a victory lane joke, ends careers and relationships inside a garage that everyone has to share for the rest of the year. But the season isn't over. The playoffs are forming, the points are tightening, and the next time Hamlin wins by a margin nobody can explain and walks into victory lane with that same unbothered energy, the calculation about what's worth saying publicly is going to change for at least one person in that field. When it does, this story shifts from a garage rumor and a viral fake post into something with real consequences, real names, real accusations, and NASCAR sitting in the middle of it. With an inspection process, the field is already quietly calling into question. Personally, I think the drivers holding back right now are making the smart short-term move and the wrong long-term one. Silence protects relationships. Speaking up protects the sport. Those two things are about to stop being compatible. If you think a driver goes public before the playoffs, drop their name in the comments. I want to see who you're watching, and if this kind of breakdown is what you come here for, the stuff that doesn't make the official press releases, subscribe now, because the next chapter of this story is already being written in garages that haven't opened their doors yet.